All right,
So do we
Remy, if
want to go?
you want to kick us off.
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks, Chelsea. So I'm Remy Pengel with Repowering Schools. I want to say thank you to all of you who are able to join us for our second webinar in our stakeholder engagement webinar series. And I'll let the folks from AES introduce themselves real quick.
Thanks, Remy. Appreciate it and your partnership. Hi, everyone. My name is Chelsea No. I am the manager of U.S. Social Impact in the West region, and I'm also oversee the AES Hawaii Foundation as well. And we're so happy to be here with you folks today for this webinar. I'll pass it off to my colleague, Jen.
Awesome. Thank you, Chelsea, and thank you, Remy. I'm happy to be here. My name is Jen Sawalik. I am a senior analyst of social impact and partnerships, and I oversee the Central and East region. I'm going to popcorn it over to Holly.
Hi, everyone. I'm Holly. I'm a lead analyst on the stakeholder relations team and oversee the Western US based in Denver. And I'll give it to Jane.
Thanks all. Jane Hickey, I lead external communications for our Central and East markets based in the Philadelphia area. I'm happy to be here. We'll get started. Or Bill, sorry, want to give a quick intro?
Yeah. So issues with that sound. So I'm just gonna.
It's a lot of feedback.
All right, we'll move forward then with the slides here. Chelsea and Jen, just let me know when you need me to click.
Yeah, I think we just wanted to quickly go over the agenda for today's webinar, just welcoming everybody. We're going to pass it off to Remy in a little bit to just do a quick introduction on repowering schools. And then our team will kind of take the lead talking about AES and the stakeholder relations and U.S. Social Impact Program, along with the exciting announcement of our partnership together with Repowering Schools and our seed grant opportunity. So we do hope that anybody who is attending, if you have questions or have some discussion topics that you'd like to ask at the end of the webinar, we'd like to make it interactive, and please feel free to drop questions in the chat, or we'll have an open forum at the end. So Jane, take it away. Or actually, I'm so sorry, Remy, if you want to take it away into our intro to Repowering Schools.
Absolutely. Just a quick introduction to Repowering Schools for those of you who may not be super up to speed on who we are and what we do. But we are a profit organization that is rooted in renewable energy workforce development, with a goal of strengthening our clean energy industry by growing a skilled and prepared workforce. If you look to the next slide, we work in this space with partners in the K-12 and community space. We can't do the work that we do without amazing industry partners. And we focus most of our time and effort on the collegiate space and working with college students to make sure they're gaining the experience they need to enter into the clean energy workforce. I'm not seeing the slides progress. Can we, I don't know if that's me. Yeah, you can go to the next slide. And just a quick overview of some of the programs that Repowering Schools offers. You all are here through this amazing webinar series that we're providing through our Energy Academy. We also have seed grant opportunities, which is another reason that you're very likely here, to help seed industry relevant research and projects in the collegiate space. We also bring students to conferences through our conference experience program, and give them opportunities to network with industry and to share out on the research and projects that they're working on at their home schools. We have networks where we're bringing communities together, like the faculty at universities that are doing work in the renewable space, and college students who are interested in getting into that renewable energy industry, and offer webinars and career education in that space. We also have an amazing awards program that is currently taking nominations. So please nominate somebody awesome. If you are interested in doing that, you can go to our website. And I think those are the key programs I wanted to highlight, but there's lots going on. I highly recommend you check out repoweringsschools.org and look around at some of the other things that we offer. And with that, the next slide, just want to preface all this with the amazing partnership between AES and Repowering Schools and this new stakeholder engagement seed grant program that we are launching as of today. So that's super exciting. I don't want to steal a lot of thunder, but just a reminder that what the folks here from AES are going to be speaking about is going to be super helpful if you are planning to prepare a proposal for the seed grant opportunity. So tune in and stay alert. So I'll hand it off to is it Chelsea? Jane next, right?
Yep, I can take this. So we just wanted to give a little bit of a brief introduction into who we are at the AES Corporation and talk through, some background there. So our purpose and our strategy and our values here, I won't read them word for word, but accelerating the future of energy and really doing that together with our partners and our communities is at the core of everything that we do. And I think a lot of what we'll talk about today will reflect that. We are a global corporation with presence in 12 countries with over 8,300 people globally. And then, you can see some of our larger portfolio here. Chelsea, Holly, Jen, and I all are part of the AES US Renewables and Power team. And this is just a little bit of like a snapshot of what our renewables business has contributed with over 14 gigawatts of energy. We are headquartered in Arlington, Virginia, and have, I think, well over 1,400 people. So we might need to update that number soon, and over 600 projects, and that number is growing every single day, and we are really excited to continue to add to that. So I'll pass it over to Holly to give a little bit of background on stakeholder relations.
Thanks, Jane. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of show this slide because at AES, we have a team that's dedicated to the engagement that we're doing in our communities. And so in order to develop the portfolio of energy projects that we have, we need to get local support, which means that we get local permits, public approval, and that helps us get a smooth transition to construction operations. And so our team supports projects across the full life cycle of projects. The whole point is that engagement isn't a one-time thing. It's fluid from prospective development through decommissioning. And so when we're in the development phase, we're focusing on researching local stakeholders, mapping stakeholders, understanding like the community perspectives and sentiments towards renewable energy, setting up communication channels, and then building a coalition of supporters that will help us like actually build that project with public approval. And then in construction operation, we're more focused on doing things like in continuing investments in the community, partnering with nonprofit groups, and supporting the groups that have partnered with us from early development as well. And then that kind of helps us prevent these things that we're trying to avoid here, which is reputational damage. I mean, once someone has that, it's pretty irreversible, and that can directly impact our project's success. And sometimes developers, in response to that, will try and enter costly agreements with neighbors, or do like a donation in response to a crisis just to like try and help improve that reputation. But usually once those are done, like in response to something negative, they lose all of their value. And so our goal is to do everything that we can proactively, just to make sure that, we're building those relationships from a good place and we're integrating ourselves into the community rather than just coming in as a developer like everyone else. And that's why it's just so critical to do that early engagement and that early like stakeholder assessment. And on the next slide, we'll kind of dive in here to who are the stakeholders. So when you're stakeholder mapping, you're trying to answer who's affected, who decides on the project, who influences, and who mobilizes locally. And And so all of these groups play very different roles. Some are directly impacting the project by voting on it and voting on the local permit. And then some, like your landowners, can be really helpful for helping you integrate into the community. Or if you're not proactive and not building those relationships, that can kind of hurt you in the end. Same with a lot of these other groups. They really hold so much potential for being allies and supporters and ways to get to know your community more. But if they're left out of the picture or not recognized, you might just lose an opportunity to build a relationship and end up with someone who doesn't have the information they need to end up supporting that project. And so our goal with mapping the stakeholders is to make sure that we're not leaving any of these groups behind. And, this map here might not even encompass everyone who's in a certain community. And so it's just really important to go in early and make sure that you have everyone you need to before you start doing that permitting. And then next, I'll let Jane kind of take us into like a real world example of that stakeholder engagement.
Yeah, thanks, Holly. So as Holly mentioned, and as you all know, this webinar is really focused on that stakeholder engagement piece. But as I mentioned earlier, I'm on our communications team. Stakeholder engagement and communications are just really inherently tied together. And for that reason, we wanted to share some of these real world communications challenges that we have faced and continue to face in the renewable energy industry. And all of these examples really fall under this broader focus area of community sentiment. And at a high level, the question we're really constantly trying to answer is why are these communities resistant or maybe unsupportive initially of some of these projects, and how can we continue to build that trust and constructive relationships and help to better educate and explain the goals of these renewable projects. So I'm going to walk through a couple different scenarios that we've encountered, and I would really encourage all of you to think about where you see kind of the gaps and where there are places or new ideas or research that could help improve upon the strategy here, not just for our projects, but for the broader renewable energy industry as a whole. So the first scenario I wanted to touch on is a case in which we had very organized and highly visible community pushback. During this project's development, there were dozens and dozens of letters to the editors submitted to different news outlets. Attendees of the group that was against this project attended public hearings and meetings, and actually were able to, speak out against the project on record and in local government. And so from a communications perspective, it was really crucial that we led our strategy with empathy and with creativity in every renewable facility. Before we can highlight our goals for the project, we really have to understand the concern of the community first. And then from there, we can really establish a way to answer and manage those concerns while also highlighting some of the benefits and opportunities that this project can bring to that community. So in particular for this project, we had to be incredibly more resilient and more creative than we've ever had to before due to how organized and outspoken this particular group was. Our strategy here was to really engage directly and work with local grassroots organizations and respond publicly through opinion pieces and letters, and make sure, as I said before, we had a really consistent, credible spokesperson. Was really crucial to breaking through what was originally perceived as a sentiment shared by the entire county or community, and allowed us to reach a point where supporters were actually made more visible and more known. And the question of creative responses to organized oppositions is always going to be something that we're working to understand and get better at. And I think the main question coming out of this case study is, how do we shift public perception when one group of people have kind of made claim to sentiment of an entire community. And so that's just one example. The next one I have here is has to do with social media. As communications professionals, social media plays a huge role in all of our work. And then as renewable energy communicators, it's even more unique. It's in the past been more contained to Facebook. and less so to some of the newer social media such as Instagram and TikTok. But more recently, we've seen this start to shift, and renewable energy influencers are actually expanding their audiences on TikTok and Instagram and doing a really good job of spreading misinformation and even targeting specific projects and mobilizing their followers to speak out in hearings or bring the misinformation offline and in day-to-day life. So in response there, we've partnered with regional trade organizations to address this misinformation collectively, and actually have collaborated with companies that would in most cases be our competitors. But like I mentioned, this is an industry-wide issue that we're facing, and the misinformation isn't necessarily about one specific project, but it's about the renewable energy industry as a whole. And so working alongside them to try to figure out how we approach what is a newer issue for us has been helpful in the past. But this opens up a whole new realm of research questions and how misinformation spreads, which messages resonate the most, what kind of interventions actually change minds, and how do we utilize these newer social medias that we weren't typically used to communicating through, as most of our communities and our audiences focus more towards Facebook, and how do we kind of come into this new space. So getting a better understanding of how this new, and I'm going to say new to renewables, way of spreading misinformation is working, and identifying new ways of combating it is really crucial next phase communication surrounding renewable energy development. And lastly, we have an example of a more of a later stage shift in community sentiment or unexpected opposition. Project development, as all of our developers will reiterate a million times, is a marathon and not a sprint. And because of that, we're really hyper focused on public sentiment perceptions throughout the entire course of development, like Holly prefaced with stakeholder engagements work. And that is, really done hand in hand with our communications team. But in this particular case, the public sentiment shifted seemingly out of nowhere just before we actually reached a decision point with community decision makers. We had hosted many open houses. We provided lots of information, had office hours, actually had a local office set up directly in the community, and really had not gotten any strong feedback or questions or opposition until really closely before this decision point. And it was a little bit out of the blue for us. And so the strength of the opposition wasn't necessarily clear, and we had to pivot. We had to pivot pretty quickly. And, to do so, we engaged in one-on-one conversations. We collected letters of support. We elevated our landowner voices. We ran some ads under some different branding, like working with partners that weren't necessarily branded under AES, so that the actual content of the information could break through a little bit more. And that was just an example of something that was a little bit of a more unique, particular project case. And raises the question really around timing and trust, and when is early enough to get engaged, and what kind of engagement is actually sticking over time. And looking back on some of our open houses or some of our fact sheets, and maybe we need to shift some of that language. So I have a quick discussion question here that we can just to food for thought as we continue throughout the rest of the webinar. But where are some of the biggest unanswered questions in these scenarios, and what kind of research might help improve upon that? And I think that is something that is always evolving and will likely never be an immediate answer. But I think there's plenty of new ways that we can start to engage communications in this project development. So I'll pass it over to Holly again.
Yeah, and I'll just give another kind of example of where we had to come up with a pretty different solution for a project impact that we came across. And so here in Colorado, we were building these two projects, which Colorado Parks and Wildlife identified were on high priority habitat areas, which just means that mule deer and elk used that specific plot of land for extreme weather circumstances and grazing, and they were just pretty important to that ecosystem. And we didn't have to do anything about that problem permit-wise, but we knew that the local culture was very big on hunting, wildlife recreation, and that was some of their biggest sources for tourism as well. And AES is also like very aligned and valued around partnering for the environment and supporting the environment in ways that we can. And so we wanted to find a solution. So we worked with Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and this was all before we were going for permits. So this wasn't like, public yet. This wasn't a problem, but we just knew that it could be, and it had potential to be really against like the local culture and perspectives and sentiment. And so in talks with Colorado Parks and Wildlife, we ended up deciding to reach out to the local land trust, Aspen Valley Land Trust, and they conserve like tens of thousands of acres across the Western US. And they manage those acres, and they conserve them for wildlife and other purposes. But we ended up creating a partnership with that land trust, in which we came up with the idea of like a solar mitigation fund, which hadn't existed in Colorado yet. And this would be like a voluntary plan where we put aside funds that were meant to conserve similar, comparable, like high priority habitat nearby. And because we created that fund, when we went to permit, we got full approval for the projects. There was really no opposition. Aspen Valley Land Trust was also like very well connected with that area and very well respected. And having them as a partner in the project was honestly probably a huge bonus for our approval. And so I think the biggest takeaway here from this example is that like engagement isn't just messaging, it's also like proactively seeing where we might come across conflict and trying to find a solution to it if we can. And, just making sure that we're aligning with the local values, becoming one of like a part of that community, and also aligning with the ecological realities of the place that we're building. And I'll pass it along to Jen.
Actually, I'll jump in here. So, thanks, Jane and Holly, for those really great case studies. So, I think just to kind of connect the dots for everyone here, too, I think both case studies are really great examples of how our team approach stakeholder engagement. And so, with this partnership with Repowering Schools and the seed grant opportunity, that's really what we want to see with our project proposals or potential research projects that you folks will be submitting for. Is based off of these real life examples. The one that Jane spoke about had a lot to do with community opposition, but ultimately AES really wanted to do what was right for the community to get this project off the ground and over the finish line. Same with Holly. They didn't have a lot of community opposition, but there was an issue that we wanted to solve, and we wanted to do right by the community, get that project over the finish line in a voluntary capacity. So what we're asking for you folks to do with your research project is to help us look at stakeholder engagement methods, different ways. We'll talk a little bit more about that as the grant criteria, but here's some just discussion questions. Again, food for thought for you to think about when you're trying to select a research topic or pose a research question based off of these examples, just some discussion questions. So if anybody would love to kind of just chime in right now live, you're welcome to. If not, feel free to reach out to us later, but we wanted to just throw this out there as an opportunity. And I see a hand raised, so I'm going to call on Josette.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me okay? I'm driving, so I apologize for any sound issues.
We can hear you, so go for it.
Yes, okay, great. I personally successful.
You're cutting a little bit in and out, so sorry.
Let me try something else. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
How about now? Is this better?
Yep, that's better.
Okay, perfect. So that you shared, because I hear so much of the complaints and in the news and all that. So my question to you is there like a single or a couple of pain points you think that are preventing the solution? So it sounds like you all are able to come up with these solutions that work. Is there a problem or a pain point for scaling these, or is it just that every single project has its own situation and you have to deal with it independently? Thank you.
Yes, really great question. I would say it's definitely the latter of what you said, is that every community is really different. Every community has their own set of values, I think kind of their own traditions that are time honored, things that are really important to them, as we sort of saw just in the two examples that were really different. So thank you, first of all, for also saying that we've come up with some solutions, but that's also not always the case. You know, sometimes projects get canceled because they don't pass a permit hearing, or sometimes gets canceled because there's too much risk involved. So I think some of the gaps that we're trying to fill are what are some other different approaches that we can take. And actually, a little bit later in the presentation, we have some specific categories that we'll want you folks to consider. So maybe we'll just save that, and then we can maybe come back to you and kind of dive into that a little bit more, if that's okay, Josette.
Yes, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, great. So just to kind of keep us moving along, we just have a few more presentation slides, and then we'll really dive into the seed grant, since we know that's what you folks are all here for. So Jen, I'll pass it off to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So this is a perfect segue to how we at AES approach our partnerships with people in our communities. So we're going to watch a quick video that centers community voices and partner perspectives that highlight impact beyond funding. So through listening, through long-term commitment, and through building trusting relationships. So Jane is going to hit play, and we also have this video on our website, which I'm gonna drop the link in the chat as well.
Every project has an impact. No energy development is inherently good, including renewable energy. That really obligates us with a responsibility, but also an opportunity to do the right thing and make this additional investment in communities, and hopefully leave the places that we're building these projects better than when we found them.
We come into these communities somewhat uninvited. They like their community. They're okay with the way things are going. And we, out of respect to them, work closely and slowly and listen. And where can we play a role? Not just, here's a check, we'll be there next year. It's like, what can be done this year? And after this year, what can we do next year that actually takes it a little bit further?
Solar and conservation are mutually inclusive. AES is thinking about this in a really innovative way to say we want to move quickly, we need to get solar to scale, and we acknowledge any impact of that on wildlife needs to be offset. It's setting an example for policymakers, other businesses, other communities that we can do both.
Fostering that love for nature really early on is critical to raising the next generation of those who will steward the land in the future.
I really feel like we're building a capacity in the future for new leaders to really make a difference.
There's about 68,000 homes on the Navajo Nation, and about 32,000 still don't have access to electricity. So we've been serving primarily that region with installing off-grid residential solar systems.
AES became more than a partner. I see it as more than just funding. The fact that I could walk up to 3 students that had the passion and the drive to bring things back to their community and tell them I could support them for an academic year, that's just incredible.
So I grew up without electricity or running water as a child. So the first solar install we did on the Navajo Nation, it really was very empowering to bring that back to Shanto, my community.
The smile after the inverter is turned on, and that's like one of the best feelings, and that's why I do want to continue doing this well into the future.
I'm really proud of the work we've installed so far, 15 off-grid residential systems, and with the support of Fort Lewis College and all the partners like AES, we're truly grateful for the tremendous support. And yeah, I just want to say thank you.
As scientists, we love to do research, but you don't often get a chance to do research in a real world situation like this. This is a utility scale solar facility that's powering Phoenix, but we get to be here and work with these professionals from completely different fields and see if we can improve both the way solar energy is done, but also the way agriculture is done.
So we're marrying this need for renewable energy with the fact that agriculture is struggling, especially in the West, because of the persistent drought. And we've identified this agrivoltaics, this idea of growing plants in partial shade to create a win-win.
I think we can take all the lessons that we've learned so that the next time that a solar array is developed to power a city, that at that utility scale, we can do it in a different way that benefits the local community even more. There are not a lot of companies, especially the size of AES, that are willing to take a risk and do these kind of partnerships with higher education. So for us, that's hugely important.
We're constantly bringing in that next generation of scientists who have come to study this topic of agrivoltaics. Is now something that they're going to be devoting their life work to. Decisions are being made at a global level based on citing work that was happening right here in Arizona. And it's remarkable to think about having that kind of legacy.
A true community partner makes investments in the community, and AES has been that for us. REpS stands for Electrical Reentry Pathway, a program for justice-involved folks who are recently incarcerated, that are looking for a second chance in the middle class.
The impact of this program is, man, God sent. So all of my classmates, I know that we've been to prison or we've been arrested, and it's just changed our whole perspective on life, that we don't have to do the wrong things.
It feels that I'm actually going to give the life that I always wanted to give my daughter to.
I just want to show my kids that basically they could do whatever they put their minds to. Here at the IBW, we're making it happen. And AES made it happen for us, and I want to say thank you.
AES is the example for other folks in the industry to look to and say, hey, listen, if you want to help this community, this is how you do it. And we couldn't be more grateful for their contribution to this vision.
My hope is that this work, social impact work, and just community investment becomes integrated into the core of renewable energy and just energy development. So when a renewable energy project is coming to their community, they inherently think this is going to bring with it really deep and meaningful benefits too.
Thank you, Jane. So we heard it in the video, and I definitely want to reinforce it here, is that every project has an impact, and AES takes the responsibility to leave communities better than when we found them. So why does this matter? Given that projects can last decades, it's essential to create that lasting positive impact in these communities. And we strive to be the proactive partner to build trust and the social license to operate. And by showing how this is just how we show as AES, how we invest in people, places, and our long-term outcomes. So we have seen this slide before, but I want to dive a little bit deeper into our partnership, AES's partnership with Repowering Schools. So we have offered a virtual learning series through Repowering Schools Energy Academy to help prospective applicants build stronger and more competitive proposals. So the first webinar focused on introduction to stakeholder and community engagement, where we actually heard directly from a panel of industry professionals working in the field. And you can watch the recording on the website that I'll drop in the chat in a little bit. And then you have almost made it through the second webinar, which is super exciting. And as you know, we're focusing on stakeholder engagement and our social impact best practices at AES. So the AES Seed Grant Program is designed to support college students, teams to conduct meaningful research projects related to stakeholder engagement, policy, and communication strategies within the renewable energy industry. And AES is offering a total of $20,000 in seed funding, awarding up to 4 student teams with about $5,000 each. And this program really aims to foster that innovation, collaboration, and community impact in the renewable energy sector. And then selected research project teams will actually have the opportunity to attend a student symposium at an industry trade conference to give opportunities to students the opportunity to share their research results with industry professionals in the fall. And if you can move to the next slide. So I think we've heard this a few times now, but I just wanted to highlight it again. We're really aiming to fill key gaps by understanding how media, communications, and social media platforms shape community sentiment around renewable energy projects. At the same time, we want to inspire students to explore careers in the renewable energy industry by connecting education and workforce pathways to the real world energy challenges. And then finally, we're also focused on developing practical, inclusive engagement strategies and educational approaches that foster early, ongoing collaboration with the communities while also addressing misinformation about the industry as a whole. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to Chelsea to dive into some focus areas.
Yeah. So kind of continuing our focus on the Sea Grant and some of the topics and some of the questions that you brought up, Josette, is these are some focus area thought starters. So within the grant proposal, we want you to select one of these focus areas. That's a part of the criteria. And so what we've provided for you folks on this slide are some examples of what a research topic could be. So for example, under stakeholder engagement, is there a unique and new coalition building techniques that you folks would want to research? Under agrivoltaics and dual use, is there a toolkit for communicating land use benefits to neighbors and local officials that maybe we haven't put together or found? Under energy justice, some examples are metrics for evaluating whether community benefits are meaningful and durable. Oftentimes we put together community benefits packages for a project community that we're working within, but we're not necessarily measuring how it's impacted once we've kind of put that package together. So is there some sort of research project around sentiment based on that? Community opposition is always a really hot topic. So is there some sort of research project around typology of opposition, values-based versus information-based versus political affiliations? Those are some really great research topics there. Stakeholder mapping, Holly talked a little bit about that earlier. Do you folks want to research and provide recommendations for sequencing engagement by stakeholder influence and risk? And then lastly, the last focus area is advocacy for government support. Is there research on strategies on supporting local elections and finding candidates who are neutral or favorable to clean energy and how we can kind of go about influencing that in the renewable energy industry? So these are some thought starters. And so we just want to, say that we're not limited to the ideas on that slide, but that's certainly what we've kind of put together as examples to kind of get the juices flowing. And then Josette, I saw your hand up, wanted to give you an opportunity to chime in.
Yes, you actually just answered it around, does it have to be around those specific things? Or I guess, can it also combine a few of them as well?
Yeah, absolutely. If we want to go back to that previous slide, Jane, so we want you to select the focus areas that we've lined out, but like the actual topic can be inclusive of stakeholder engagement and community opposition and sentiment. But you're not limited to the examples that we've listed here. But the 6 focus areas, you are limited to a research project within one of those 6 focus areas. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, so we'll move ahead to the next slide. So this is just some specific grant criteria that we really wanted to outline. This is also on the website as well. So the team composition, we're looking for 2 or more college students A diverse academic background is encouraged, but not mandatory. And a faculty advisor is required to oversee support of the project. The project proposal must pose a research question and then provide objectives, methodology, anticipated outcomes, include one or more of the focus areas that we just went over, provide methods for engagement with stakeholders, and then renewable energy challenges and solutions that you're potentially providing research on. Community impact, I'm sorry, we'll go through a few more. So community impact is really important. We want to make sure that your research project demonstrates the potential for positive, long-lasting impacts. Feasibility, also, we hope that you're able to achieve this research within 1 semester, so providing a realistic timeline and budget. And then reporting. Final reporting is really important to us. We want to make sure that we're capturing all the intended outcomes, challenges, and recommendations you might have. So I'll pause there. And Josette, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, hello. Does college necessarily mean undergrad, or are grad students allowed as well?
Yep, so we are accepting undergrad or graduate students as well. So either teams would be acceptable.
Great. And then follow-up question. So is the funding to be used in its entirety in the project? Like, for example, let's say the scope would be way more than a $5,000 grant, but we have to limit it to that $5,000. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep, so you can and that's actually a really great point. We do highly encourage if it's a research project that's on a larger scale, and AES is a portion of that research project. We would want to know what the $5,000 did support. Maybe if the total budget is $100,000, but out of the $100,000, you got awarded $5,000 from AES, and it's going to support this particular research section, then we would want to know what that is in particular as a part of your broader initiative.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? This is really kind of the meat of the grant criteria as well. Okay, so we'll advance to the next slide. So this is really where we're at as far as process and timeline goes. So today is the official announcement of the seed grant opportunity opening. And so we're looking to close applications on May 25th. It is Memorial Day, so we're hoping that you can get your applications in before that, but we've got that extra time there to submit them by the 25th, and that will be through the Repowering Schools website that you'll submit that application online. And then we are looking to award grantees in June, and our hope is that you can implement the project through July, September, through the end of the year, and then there's some reporting requirements that happen before December. Any questions about process or timeline? All right, we'll go ahead and advance to the next slide. And so this is a QR code that you can scan that gives you access directly to the application. I believe we just dropped in the chat a link to where it's located on the website as well. Thank you, Jen, as well as access to the webinar 1 that we previously hosted last month, and access to this webinar that's really specific to the Seed Grant program. So please feel free to share this webinar as well as the link to the application with other colleagues or folks in the industry that you might think are interested in this opportunity as well. But wanted to quickly just open it up for one last Q&A. If anybody has other questions about our work or the grant application that's available. All right.
Well, sorry, quick question.
Oh, go ahead. No, yes, go ahead, please.
Are we going to be able to see these slides after the webinar as well, like in a PDF form?
Sure, yes. We are providing the slides by If you're asking for them, then we will provide them. And so by request only, so we'll go ahead and PDF and send that to you, Josette. I believe Remy has your contact information, so we'll go ahead and get that to her and send that out to you. But if anybody else would like to specifically request a copy of the slides, please reach out to Remy directly.
Thank you.
And this recording will be on the website.
Yep. Wonderful. All right, well, that is all we have prepared for you today. We really appreciate everyone taking the time to learn and listen about the opportunity. And again, please share with your own networks. We'd love to consider your proposal and your research project and work with you in the future.
Wonderful. Thank you to the AES gang. You guys were amazing. Thank you so much for presenting today. And yeah, we look forward to your applications and, you know, be in touch if or need any help.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.